Hello ladies, gentlemen, and persons in between. My name is Tim Snowborn and we're here to talk about right livelihood on this episode of American Values. Sorry I haven't been around lately. I went to Disney World for a week with some friends, and on Monday I had the interview for the job in Portland and I talked to a potential roommate there, so things are kind of up in the air, but I'm going to try to put out videos at least once a month. But I've been kind of busy lately. So, right livelihood is a Buddhist teaching that's been much on my mind lately. If you're not familiar, one of the primary teachings of the Buddha is the Four Noble Truths, that being 1. All life involves suffering. 2. Suffering is caused by our attachment to things and circumstances outside ourselves. 3. The key to ending suffering is ending that attachment. And 4. The key to ending that attachment is the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path includes right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And it's that fifth one that I want to talk about today. What right livelihood means, at least in my understanding, is that we're supposed to make our living in such a way that it does not bring suffering to others. There are a number of ways in which our livelihood might bring suffering to others. If you are selling a product or performing a service that you know is dangerous to your customers, but you're not telling them about that, that's not right livelihood. You're endangering your customers and not telling them, or you're downplaying the danger that you're putting them in. If you are charging way too much, especially for things that people need, that is, again, another example of not right livelihood. If you are making your product or service available through slave labor or people who are very much underpaid, that, again, a good example of a bad way to make a living. If your product or service is harmful to the environment, if your product or service is not traded fairly, that is, if you are getting a much greater benefit from the transaction than the people you do business with. These are some examples of violating the right livelihood principle. There's a perception among conservatives that liberals hate rich and wealthy people, which, as a number of things conservatives believe, is not accurate. First of all, there are many liberals who are rich or wealthy, but the main reason that perception isn't true is because we don't have a problem with anyone having lots of money as long as they made that money fairly, as long as they make their living in a way that doesn't bring a lot of suffering to other people. If you're charging way too much, like the drug companies who jack up the prices on EpiPens and other medications that people need to live, that is obscenely wrong. Charging way too much for healthcare in general. People need healthcare. It shouldn't be prohibitively expensive. And people shouldn't have to earn the right to it. In other words, if you're exploiting cheap labor in poor countries abroad and doing nothing to give back to those communities, that is wrong livelihood. If you are not paying your workers a living wage, if you're living high on the hog while your workers struggle to make ends meet, that is an unethical livelihood by this standard. Look at Jeff Bezos. He's a billionaire, one of the richest men in the world, but he made his money by screwing over a lot of workers who work long hours for not a lot of pay and not a lot of benefits. He only grudgingly raised the minimum wage in his company to $15 an hour. Walmart is another good example. Underpaid workers who aren't allowed to unionize and don't have very good benefits. Now, to be fair, it's sort of difficult today to be a consumer who doesn't step on anyone's toes. It's hard to avoid products that are made with cheap labor overseas. I have a MacBook right here and an iPhone in my pocket, and we've all heard the horror stories of what goes on at those factories in China. I am not a vegetarian, and obviously eating meat causes at least some suffering to those animals, even if they're free range and have lots of space to move around and are well fed and taken care of before they're murdered. So I don't know that it's reasonable to expect people to completely avoid causing any suffering to any person or animal in the course of their daily consumption. Having said that, you can't say, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. We can't avoid suffering, so let's just go whole hog. No. You're supposed to try to avoid that. You're supposed to try to minimize the amount of suffering you're causing. If you're contributing to climate change and poisoning the water and the air, again, wrong livelihood. It seems like it's really hard to follow the principle of right livelihood and still become a millionaire or a billionaire. It seems like you can't reach that level of money without screwing over a lot of people. So this is a value that is very important to liberals. Liberals tend to be more conscious about the supply chain of their products and services that they use, how well the workers are paid, whether or not they're allowed to unionize. Walmart also causes suffering by driving other smaller businesses out of business. It means making your living in an ethical way. Right livelihood, in my understanding at least, means that you make your living in an ethical way. That is, you do it in a way that does not bring a lot of suffering to a lot of others. So yeah, this is a very important concept to liberals, not so much conservatives, at least not that I've noticed. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments section. As long as they're not exploiting their customers or the people in their supply chain. So tell me what you think, guys. Is right livelihood important to you? Do you try to avoid products and services that come from exploited labor? Does your livelihood bring suffering to others? That's all I've got for today. Thank you very much for joining me for this conversation. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. It's great to have you here. I hope that you will subscribe and join me for future conversations and check out my previous videos for more. If you're a current subscriber, welcome back. It's wonderful to have you tuning in again. Again, sorry I'm not releasing videos more often. I've been kind of busy lately. But yeah, I hope that you will join me again. Thank you for returning. I really appreciate your support. Well, wish me luck transitioning to Portland. Take care, everyone. Bye.